Hello. Hi,
Hi,
everybody. Welcome to Curiosity Cove. My name's Veda.
my name's Jackie.
And today we unfortunately don't have your trusty Cap, but we do have an exciting League of Legends Gods of Runeterra edition for you. So it's going to be very exciting. We do have Cap's notes, so she's still here kind of in spirit. We're going to go over her gods and kind of sum them up for you guys. But first, how was your
You do
day,
a cap
Chucky?
impression.
Yeah, I can't do, dude. I wish I could do like her anime voice because it's so good, but I can't. So you guys are just gonna have to settle
Um,
for my boring voice. Can you do a Cap
well,
impression?
um, guys, I quit. I quit.
Wait,
Edit that out of the VOD. Play copyright music.
can we cut? Can we cut? um,
Let me go. Let's restart
we
this.
just
Like,
end it now and just restart it. This is a
literally.
supplemental. How's your day? I mean, I know that we were just like hanging out for the last 2 hours, but like, how was your day before that?
I mean, like before that, it was pretty good. I watered the garden. You
Oh,
know,
lovely.
I had a meal. Yeah, super exciting things.
Like a whole
How was your
meal.
day? Like well, I have no food in my fridge because
Bro,
my
same.
yeah. Anyways, so I was brought a sandwich and I heated it up. So that
Excellent.
was good. Good.
Well,
Yeah.
we take
How was your
those.
day?
Those are dubs. Um, I woke up incredibly early because my parents left town today, and I
Oh,
luckily did not have to garden. I didn't have to garden today because it rained, so that watered all the plants for me. Um,
please.
yeah, it's nice too because we have like 34 plants in the back, that require like actual care because they're harvestable food. Um,
Okay.
so luckily, I didn't have to do much. I let the rain take care of it, and I did my art piece. You saw it, Mothman. Um,
Yes, that was so cool.
yes, I'm actually very happy with it. It kind of started as a meme, but I kind of like it. So, I did that entire art piece today, and then I had a little like, kind of like a few errands to do, and then we hung out. It's been a good day. It's actually been an okay day.
Good day.
Yeah,
That sounds peaceful.
yeah.
A little reset.
Yeah, it was. And I just finished my work week, so honestly, kind of like it was a really good like break today, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand. That's the same with me. I like such a busy work week where I'm like,
Yeah.
ah, finally get to breathe.
Yeah, we're preparing for like we have a golf outing that my company is doing, and so I'm running all over the place up until the golf outing, kind of like making sure all of the raffle stuff is in order, and like we keep getting everyone keeps adding new prizes to the raffle pool, and I'm like, can we like I don't even think we have this many people entering the raffle. Like at this point everyone's winning something, and they're like,
I mean, that's a win.
yeah, but
Get
they're
in
like,
there.
some of the prizes are crazy. There's skydiving is a prize, and then
Whoa.
flying a plane is a prize. Like they're so insane. And I'm like, you guys, and they're giving away like a flat screen TV and like all this other shit. And I'm like, how much money are you expecting to get versus how much did this cost? um,
No, exactly.
it's kind of insane. And then they're also paying for all of us to go, and I'm like, we're losing money here, aren't we?
I mean, community events, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Community outreach, I'll take it. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't know. I'm glad to hear that our days were both kind of like chillaxed
For
because
real.
we
And I taught
deserve
you
it.
what TikTok Riz Party was today, so.
I hate it. I can't believe this is what meme culture has become. I also can't believe I like it bypassed me. I think I've been off of social media and TikTok specifically for so long that I just don't see the memes from them anymore because they end up on like the Riz Party thing will be on Instagram, which is like the only social media I use anymore, in like 2 months because it's always like 3 months behind. So I would have
To
learned
be
about it
fair,
in a couple
yeah.
months.
To be fair, it died though, like after less than a month of it
Yeah, but that's
starting,
what Instagram Reels is dead TikToks.
Yeah,
You know,
true.
they're brought back a few months later as if they're new, and then And then those of us who are like, fuck TikTok, are, enlightened. And I'll bring shit up to people, and they'll be like, yeah, that was on TikTok a few months ago. And I'm like, okay then.
Like a little
Or,
slightly
yeah.
lagged, but it's good.
At least
Cultured but lagged.
cultured, but like, delayed cultured. Well, before we get into the gods of our lovely country or continent or whatever it is of Valoran, because I'm still unsure, I do have a word of the day. I'm gonna fuck it up.
Really?
Hold on. Omnipotent. Do you know this word?
I believe I know this word.
So I know the word because I know omnipotence, but I didn't know what it actually, like, I've heard it in relation to gods and stuff before. So I was like, what does it actually mean? Because I always thought it just meant like omnipotence was like unseen, or like just like, I guess like a overseeing god or ruler or celestial form or something that is like you can't see it but you know that it's powerful. I'm almost right. It's it just means to be powerful. It just means being able to do literally anything, or like having unlimited power, or being like supreme. So we will be going over a whole bunch of people who are omnipotent today.
Ooh.
It's also a funny word. Omnipotent.
Yeah, it sounds like low-key like impotent.
Right, yeah. Well, so the only reason I have this like memory burned in my brain, Bo Burnham. Okay, have you ever heard his old song about like God? Like he's like the song is like him like being God. Like he's like from the perspective of God, I think is what it's called. Because there's a line in it where he says, I don't use my own omnipotence to be a fucking creep or something like that. And so I've always known the word is there. I just never knew what it really meant.
Well, now we know. Now we
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Yes. And now we're going to talk about a whole bunch of people related to it. So I think what we decided beforehand is I'm going to go ahead and go through Captain's lore. Since she can't be here with us today, we're going to give you guys a rundown of who she had. And unfortunately, the lore is not going to be like super, super in depth. Maybe we'll cover it in next month's, like circle back a little bit so she can get all of her fun facts that she might have had out. But she put down like points for herself, and I don't know what she was exactly planning on saying. So I'm just going to go over basics of her champs. And then for both her champs and my champs, I looked up quotes and I chose my favorite. But she was in charge of the Freljord. And then we gave her a couple of kind of like wandering or like unregionalized champions, because I think we all have a couple of those. Like I know Choccy has one. I have I think a one, and I think Cap had a couple. So starting with the Freljord, we have Anivia, the bird. I don't know a lot about her. I do now, but I didn't know a lot about her. Like I know that her, Ornn, and Volley are siblings, but she's kind of like separated from Volley and Ornn because they're like, when we go over them, they're kind of intertwined. Anivia's kind of separate. Essentially, she's a Freljordian demigod, as all three of them are, and she represents the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. She also is said to represent the change of the seasons. So to those who believe in her, she's like this elemental soul and a symbol of hope and like a catalyst of change. There are like ancient songs that tell us how she was born, and how the world changed when she was born, because she was, her like egg passive where you have to kill the egg or she can be reborn.
Maybe I know about the ice wall.
Yeah.
Because that's annoying.
It is kind of annoying, yeah. Well, so when you kill Anivia, you have to like kill her egg, otherwise she can come back to life. It's kind of like Zack with his like goo, you know?
So she's like an ice phoenix,
Yeah,
Loki.
because she goes into egg form when she dies, and if you don't kill the egg, then she gets to come back to life. Um, it's really annoying because early on you can't really like you don't have enough damage to actually kill the egg yourself. So unless she's like bot lane and you can manage to like focus all your damage on the egg, she just gets to come back. She gets a free life.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's like genuinely her whole shtick. She's immortal. So when something destroys her or when she sacrifices herself, because that is something that she's done for the Freljord, she basically is like dissipated and then reborn and rehatched. But the first time that it happened, the shards of her egg kind of went into the sky and started to fall, and that is how snow was created in the Freljord.
Oh, okay.
And
Cool.
ever since her birth, it has just always snowed in the Freljord. So I thought that was kind of cool. Uh, and then essentially since her birth, she's just kind of like dedicated her entire existence to the Freljord. So she like teaches people how to survive the cold. She's like really welcoming to mortals. She gave them true ice, which is like, you know how Ash's arrow, her frozen arrow for her ult, is like made of ice, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like super magical because it stuns you. So that's essentially
Mm-hmm.
true ice. It's infused with elemental magic, and it was a gift that she gave to the Freljord because it's an unmelting kind of ice. It's pure ice, and you can't melt it. And this is what um the Freljord used to basically ward off any intruders. But it's also kind of dangerous because if you remember when we were talking about like the three sisters, like Avarosa, Lysandra, and the other one who I feel bad because I forgot her name, Sherelda. Um, the three of them, and do you remember like the story about the Watchers? Like Lysandro's working with the Watchers who were like
Mm.
evil and made the Frostborn or whatever. I think that is also use of like that's the destructive side of true ice, but all of it comes from Anivia. So she kind of
Okay.
combined ice with magic to make this kind of like unmeltable, powerful ice that they could use in their weaponry. And it kind of started to give people an idea of like how nurturing and destructive Anivia could be. So while most people embrace her existence and work alongside her, some others fear her. But as it is today, when the last time that she was reborn after sacrificing herself, because there were colossal creatures that kind of came in marching towards the Freljord, they're called Bale Striders. When she sacrificed herself, she did so by essentially plunging into the ice beneath their feet and shattering her own body in order to entomb them. And so
Okay.
she died doing that. And then when she was reborn, Ash was just put into power as the leader of the Avarosans. So she had done her whole thing where she was like, fuck all of you, I am the War Mother, this is my chosen husband, we're gonna reunite the Freljord, da 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 da. And Anivia, who's witnessed the Freljord like together and divided, this is the first time that she feels hopeful that the Freljord will be united again. So currently she's kind of just
Okay.
like rooting for Ash and like, you know, nurturing the people of the Freljord as she always has. Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah. And then the quote that I have from her is really simple. It's just think beyond one lifetime. It's kind of like
Hmm.
it's kind of a slay quote. I mean, I
Don't
can't
let us
because I
play.
only get one, but like
But go off,
I
to be
only get
honest.
one, but like go off.
Yeah, it's like lucky. Okay,
Yeah,
flex. Like,
for sure. Yeah,
cool.
flex your multiple lives. It's fine. Um, but yeah, that's Anivia. Pretty short and sweet. And then Ornn and Folly kind of have intertwined stories, so I'm going to explain them together, but they are like still a little separate. Ornn, we all know him. He has actually got a mini game out right now that I played earlier, and it's very, very cute on the homepage of the League client. So go log in and play that. Did you got to play a little bit of it too, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I did get to play a little bit of it, and I would have never known it existed if you didn't tell me about it.
Well, you're welcome, because it's actually super cute and super fun. But we all know Ornn. He's the big goat boy, and he forges items and he crafts. You sit in the corner and you craft on the rift. I love Ornn. But he was the firstborn of like the old demigods. So these three, out of the three siblings, he's the oldest. He essentially shaped land itself. He's like if Anivia is like the seasonal changing, then Ornn is the creation of the land of which the seasons fall upon. He's all about like forging and shaping and like creation. So basically, beneath a dormant volcano from ancient eruptions, he labored day and night, forging whatever he wanted. He got tools that were destined for like legendary feats. The lucky few who actually stumbled upon these creations that he made would probably notice that they're like of high quality, unlike any other quality they've ever seen. And some people claim that Braum, that his shield was actually made by Ornn, and that it is still as sturdy as it was thousands of years ago when he made it. So he's just like, he's like the craftsman, you know? Like, if
like
you
built
were
like that.
Yeah, if you were gonna get an iron wrought fence, you would like really want to make sure that Ornn built it for you. but yeah, so this is like his entire thing, and there were like a whole bunch of people, like he had a following, and they would bring him their work, and he didn't really like, it's not that he didn't like mortals, it's just that he couldn't really like understand how to be on the same level as them. So there would be like blacksmiths and brewmasters and architects, and they would bring him their work, and he would either like give them a frown or give them like a nod or something.
I got to get Ornn Poppy's approval.
Yeah, literally. So like they just wanted his approval. They were like, "You're so good at what you do. Please tell me that like that this sword looks good. Please tell me that these plans for this building look good." And he would just like give them really short, curt responses. Like didn't really have like anything to do. So he would do all of this, which if you guys play the game, you'll get the reference. But he would do all this at what was called the Hearth Home, and they were obsessed with him. They were like even though he didn't say anything, like they would speculate like, oh, when he nods, like it means that he secretly approves of your craftsmanship. And like he just had this like very like little like following who were like so obsessed with getting his approval. But tragedy struck because all of it was destroyed when Volibear, his brother, battled with him on the peak of the mountain. He and Volibear had this like awful fight, and essentially the forge and like everything in the Hearth home that the students and Ornn like cared for were basically destroyed, just brought to the ground. His following gone, his life's work gone. And I believe he still stays there, but he stays there alone, and that's what this game is kind of depicting. So if you play it, it is a little sad, but it's like it's sad in like a really warm way, if that makes sense. Because you like learn instead of being this like grumpy old goat man who, you know, whatever, he's like, he just, you know, he had everything and then he lost it and he doesn't want to lose it again. It's like this whole thing. And so
cute guy.
yeah, he's adorable. I love Ornn. My quote for him is actually a quote that I knew before I went and looked at everybody, so I just wrote it down because it like pulls at my heartstrings. Because he goes, "I had followers once. They tried," and it's like it's sad, but also it's like he never forgot them. Like even though he's like this immortal demigod, like he still remembers his little following that he had, and like it
Mm-hmm.
shows you that he was paying attention to them, like that he did respect them or like he did care for them. And like in the game, like honestly, the game is not like tear jerky at all, but like there was a brief moment where I was like, am I gonna cry from this?
Uh,
Yeah. So that is Orn, and then similarly, Volibear, um, so he's kind of like his following or like his the way he's viewed by the Freljord is kind of split in half. So to some they call him like Thunder's War, the Valhyr, the Great Storm, and then other people call him like He Who Stands or the Thousand Pierced Bear. And he represents like ruin. So most tribes who are still stuck in like the traditional times, they call him the Volibear. And he represents like the just like vast unstoppable power and all of the fury that the Freljord itself holds within. Um he and his kin formed the land that they call the Voriyard. I think that's how it's pronounced. Long before mortals and mortal races even existed. So he created what's called the Five Fjords with the swipe of his claws, and there was this giant, like magma serpent named Rond, and they formed valleys and ravines by battling this thing. And then when he finally killed this serpent, its blood became the first river in the Freljord. Like there's all these like crazy mythological stories about him and how he shaped like Orn made the land, Anivia made the snow, and then Valdi crafted like the landmarks or like the rivers and the mountains and the fjords and like all of that stuff. So the three of them together are like credited with forming the Freljord, but all of them had like a very different part in it. The Volibear was worshipped for a really, really long time because people thought that they needed his strength in order to survive. So wars were waged, and Volibear would take to the field with his followers in basically like armor that had been crafted by Orn. And then the two of them drifted apart, and the three sisters that fought for the Freljord, they kind of rose to power and separated everything, and nobody could agree on anything. So the gods, the demigods of the Freljord, all basically like went their separate way. And then the tribes that we know today is like the one that is ran by Ash, and then the one by Sejuani, and then Lysandra. They all formed, and they had like their own one of the three demigods that they really worship. So he basically just watched as his entire like culture fell apart. Like everyone went their separate ways. People started believing different things. Fields were being, brought up. Cattles were being brought up instead of being hunted. And they would start eating like kind of an omnivore diet, whereas it used to be very like barbarian-esque, and they would be like hunters, and it would be, you're fishing and you're hunting for meat, and like that's what we eat out here. So he was like, what the fuck is going on? This is not the Freljord. This is not my Freljord. And he kind of got a little crazy and thought that they were kind of like disrespecting him and his siblings, but none of the demigods agreed on anything, and so this ultimately it led to his battle with Orn, and it led to like the rift that's kind of between the three siblings. And it's crazy because like in the lore they all still like acknowledge each other for what they really are. Like they respect the things of the past that they like. They're still siblings, you know what I mean? Like they very much have that sibling
Mm.
relationship of like, I don't fuck with you, but like you are my sibling and I recognize that. So it's like it's very sad. And he's got his quote that I wrote down is also a very tragic one. It says, "In my dreams I see bones frozen in ice. I wonder if they are my own."
Oh,
Yeah. And I just want to give Orin and Valde like pets on the head and be like, you guys are okay. Just like make up, you know?
yeah,
They deserve family. You could just like make up. But
true.
yeah, those are the three demigods of the Freljord. So they don't have like super extensive lore, and there's a lot of stuff that is like this could have happened, or like this is a legend of the volley bear. This is a legend of Orn the great craftsman, but there's no like true set in stone because they've lived for thousands of years. And so as time went on, people just knew less and less factual information about them, and it all turned to legends and stories and something other than fact. So we don't know for sure anything else about them. That's pretty much the basis of it. Uh, but the three of them are still like, I mean, they're still kicking. Volley
Mm.
Bear is still very much annoying people on Summoner's Rift.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most definitely.
absolutely. Um, who do we have next? I believe. Would you rather hear about Bard, Aurelion Sol, or Soraka first?
Mm, let's do Soraka.
Soraka. Okay, so Soraka was basically her whole thing is that she decided she was no longer able to just watch what was going on around her, so she was uh a celestial being who actually decided to come down to the mortal realm and fix things. She was
Okay.
a child of the stars who took on like a humanoid form, and she's got this essentially like ancient magic coursing through her veins. Um, and she just created herself as like close to human. She kind of resembles like a Vestaya, like a humanoid, animalistic kind of looking being. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, she came down and she's like was super quick to learn how the battlefields on Runeterra are. They have inescapable conflicts. They have like all of these cities that are being tortured and burnt to the ground, and she was like, there's just no end to this fighting and suffering and the amount of betrayal these mortals are willing to like cast upon each other is awful. So she kind of started to feel helpless, and she felt like there was so much that the world had potential for that they were just destroying. So she started feeling lost, and she started to notice this like unintended design in the world. Just like a whole bunch of complexity where these mortals were fighting against their futures. Like they're like everything could have been laid out for them, and humanity could have been in this like perfect blissful unified state, but what the people of Runeterra were doing was they were just fighting that possibility. And her whole story is basically her watching these futures unfold, like the futures that they were choosing rather than this like blissful utopia that could have been. um so she was down in Runeterra for like a millennia, and she was just wandering around like watching people essentially like fight everything that could have been and choose these paths of like war and death and destruction and da 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 da. And then eventually she kind of started like lending her aid to those who she felt were like on the right path. So a lot of this kind of circulates around people from like Targon who are like aspect related. um and she continues on even today, essentially like calling Targon her home, but wandering around and lending her aid and watching civilizations like bring themselves back from the brink of destruction. And she's like trying not to intervene as much as she can, but she wants to like make sure everyone ends up okay. And that's her whole thing. She literally, like, her entire existence is basically her just trying to understand the cosmos and understand why people are fighting and why they make the decisions that they make. Like, she's just a lost girl in this world. She's like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on.
Just observing and
She's like a wallflower to everything. And it seems like, from what I understand, she like takes everything in and she kind of like learns it as a way to understand that like different collections of people work in different ways, and that there's a way to do everything without like violence, like a way to solve conflict. But she herself doesn't really know what that is, and she doesn't know how to get people to listen to her when she figures out what it is. So she just lends her help where she can, and she's just like existed for a millennia on Runeterra. She like came down real quick to like, she was like, I can just fix this shit. And then she came down, she's like, never mind, this is like really complicated, so I'm gonna be here for a while. And then like a millennia later, she's still here.
Still trying to figure it out.
Literally. But I guess later on when we talk about Zoe, I learned that like the celestial realm is like, you might spend a year in the celestial realm, and then if you were to come back, it's like 1,000 years. So I mean, she was watching for, who knows, maybe like 10 years, which is like 10,000 years for us. And she's like, oh, I could fix this. It's only been like, I've only watched the world decline for 10 years. But then she gets here and it's like 10,000 years of fucking war and hate and betrayal and terrible things. You're trying to fix all that? Good luck.
I can fix it. I can fix it.
Yeah, she said, I promise, Mom, I can fix it. Just let me go down to the world. I can fix it.
Literally.
Continuing on with the thing. Oh, so she doesn't really have a quote, per se, but I do want to take a moment to mention to anybody who might not know, her joke is she summons a banana, and I think she says like, yes, that's a banana, and then she like laughs a little and she's like, no one ever expects the banana, and I think it's like so adorable. But I love it. I have I think the Dawnbringer Soraka skin, and it's like this beautiful like crystal banana just floating into the sky. So sometimes I like do that at the beginning of ARAMs just to taunt people. All hail the banana.
All hail.
Continuing with the kind of theme of wanderers, Bard, who is one of the one of the most interesting champions, I think. If you've never seen Bard, or if you've never played Bard, he is a giant like space astral being, and he walks around collecting wind chimes, and all of his voice lines sound like like they're all like space noises. It's ridiculous. But in the beginning of his existence, he basically just spent his time wandering without any sort of like purpose, but like this kind of inner hope and this anticipation lingering that eventually something would fill that void, which it did. With the forging of the first stars, he essentially was given a glimpse into like this world unknown. So he heard these notes of creation that kind of like formed these melodies and harmonies between the stars, and like he heard all of this as though it was like this music that life itself was creating. So he called these like notes of energy meeps, and essentially they were drawn to him whenever he added his own voice to the cosmos, and he creates music with creation. It's like a really strange, like primitive music that he creates, where it's like he gosh, he hears things as music, but then he also adds his own voice to it. So for instance, when he heard like this unknown music coming from the First Lands, which is Ionia, he and his meeps crossed into the material realm, and then all of a sudden, the way the lore puts it is like his ears became like eyes, and he fashioned himself in like a humanoid body with like trinkets and fabrics of like a traveling wagon, and he put on like a beguiling mask and like just like decorated himself, and then he just walked the world. Like he just explored the world and heard the music of the land, and it like his whole thing is that like beauty and creation and life itself makes music, and that fills that void of a lack of purpose for him. So he has basically taken the role of a caretaker. He travels around Runeterra, and he takes anything that's out of place and essentially like returns it to a place where it can do no harm, where it doesn't like mess with the fabric of things. He like sees this as him bringing the world back into tune, like almost it's like an out of tune instrument, and he's tuning it slowly. So he is just figuring it out, man. He's just like, he's writing his songs and he's figuring out where they fit into the universe. That's like his whole shtick.
That's cute.
Yeah, he's like a super interesting character because he's just like space boy making music. That's it. That's all it is.
Cute.
But yeah, he doesn't have a quote either because, like I said, he just does bloop bloop and does like little jingles all over the place. I love playing him, but I don't understand him that much. I just fly around really fast, picking up my wind chimes, and I leave my laner alone because he is a roaming support, like a hella roaming support. And I just don't get it. I don't see anybody play him, so I just don't understand how he works. And then finally, Cap had Aurelion Sol. Aurelion Sol is honestly really minimal. He is a mighty being. He was ancient even when the mortal races of Runeterra started. He was born in the first breath of all that we know, of all of creation. And he and those like him basically roamed in nothingness until like this idea came across them to start creating essentially like constellations and worlds and all this stuff. So Aurelion Sol's whole thing is he created the stars. So like the constellations, the aspects, the stars, the planets, like those are all him. So
yeah, because he like vomits a galaxy. Like,
yeah, I mean, so the aspects existed, right? But every aspect is kind of like connected to the stars, like to a constellation. So he essentially is a celestial dragon, and he's recognized as like the most powerful being in all of creation because he was like one of the first things to ever exist. But he basically just like his whole thing is that he creates the stars, and he works closely with the aspects of Targon, which we'll go over later. And I think right now, as it is, he's kind of trapped because, like, essentially what happened was the aspects asked the mortals to bring him a gift, like a suitable gift. And so they climbed the tallest mountain, which is Mount Targon, and gave him a crown. But the crown clamped in place with this like undeniable force. And even though he can't remove it, he could like feel the knowledge of the sun and its creation being stolen and scrutinized by intelligences like inferior to his own. So like they were stealing his knowledge. But the power of the crown also like healed, like it took his entire existence and like uprooted him back in, like he was like just yeeted off of the fucking planet. Like like the crown had such a power that it threw him back into space, or like back into like the celestial dimension that he's from. And so
Egg.
he is now forced to watch the aspects of Targon kind of like uh give, like he's forced to watch them order around mortals is basically all it is. And when they started ordering the mortals around, what they ended up doing was they created the sun disk in Shurima, and the sun disk channels his celestial power, so that like those rays that
Oh.
come through to get the immortal god warriors, like
Hmm.
that's Aurelian Soul's celestial power. And so that they've basically
Wow.
like, he's trapped with this crown on his head, and the Targonian aspects essentially like force him to give his power to the people of Shurima to ascend them, to like get them to be ascendant. Um
Hmm.
and he's just like kind of stuck here, like watching Runeterra rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall. And he basically like, because of him being like trapped and forced um to watch all of this, he's got like a very consistent idea of how much power the crown still has over him, and it is like slowly weakening. So at some point, like he's going to be free, and his plan is to essentially like make everybody feel sorry for how they trapped him. So I think they're, what they're setting it up for is like at some point there's going to be a fight between Aurelian Soul and the aspects, and
Hmm.
the universe is going to like see what happens when you steal power from the most powerful being in existence. Um the quote that I have for him is, my I play a soul a lot, and so this is my favorite quote, is he sits there and he goes, "Why does anybody wish upon a star?" And it's just like this cute little like Disney reference, and I think it's funny.
Oh,
Mm.
I
But
like that.
those are uh Cap's champs. I don't think I missed any of them. Um Luckily she left enough notes for me to remember the lore that I know about these guys. But
W cap.
yeah, good job, Kat. Thank you. But I think I'll hand it over to you. We just talked about Shurima, so why don't you tell us
We
more,
did just talk
Chucky?
about Schumann. All right, so starting off, I want to get into Nasus and Renekton. So I'm gonna be doing them kind of like grouped in together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Nasus grew up and he had a passion for knowledge and he critiqued the greatest works of Shuriman, or oh my God, Shuriman history and philosophy before he was even 10. Like he was kind of a prodigy,
He
right?
was a Schwarman prodigy,
He was a Schwarman prodigy.
right?
And his younger brother, Renekton, on the other hand, was like a fighter, and he would just fight like all the older children than him, like everybody. Like he just would always fight. But even though they were very different, they were very close. And Nasus kind of kept an eye on him and like made sure he didn't get into any trouble. Um, so when Nasus like came of age, he kind of excelled in his studies and became the youngest general in history of the Schwarman Empire. So he was a competent soldier, but his kind of main reason for becoming a general was because he was really great at planning battles. So
Mhm.
while Nasus was gone, Renekton's fighting kind of became more serious, and Nasus kind of was like worried about his younger brother.
Mhm.
So he kind of took him under his command and assisted him in entering the military service as well. And he ended up doing really well and rose through the ranks as a capable warrior. So he did like excel in war, which I mean, I guess he's a fighter, so it makes sense.
Honestly
um,
figures. Yeah.
yeah. And Nasus understood that there was a need for war, and he was very accomplished in his wars, but he firmly believed that knowledge was his greatest contribution to Shurima. So he was like, I understand that we need to fight, but I feel like I can contribute more with just my knowledge.
Mhm.
So let's see here. So they fought in numerous wars and they wanted to conquest and expand the empire. Um, it was Nasus who planned the battles, but Renekton who won them. They were kind of known as the kind of the duo there.
Oh, okay. So they
Yeah.
like so one was the brain and one was the brawn, huh?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see.
Exactly. And after decades of dutiful service, Nasus was cruelly struck by a terrible sickness. So his physician kind of was like, "You're going to be dead within a week." So the
Okay.
Emperor of Shurima pleaded with Sataka. Um, like, so he pleaded with him and was like, "Please allow all of Nasus's good actions to be weighed before the sun disk." Right?
Mhm.
So, Renekton ended up like racing home to be with his brother and was like shocked to find that he was like fragile as glass and he like couldn't like his flesh was like wasting away.
No.
Um, and he was so weak that he was unable to climb the final step into the light of the sun disk.
Oh.
Yeah. So, Renekton's love for his brother was stronger than any sense of self-preservation, so he carried Nasus into the
Oh my
dais
god, I'm gonna
and willingly
cry.
accepted oblivion in order to save his
Oh
brother.
my god, I'm gonna actually cry. What the fuck? I did not
Yeah,
know
so he
any of
was
this.
like,
That's so tragic.
I know he's like, I'm sacrificing myself so my brother would have the chance
Oh
to
my
live.
god.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
But
cry.
Renekton, but plot twist, Renekton was not destroyed, and when the light faded, not one, but two god warriors emerged.
Let's
So,
go!
big W. So Naxos stood as a towering jackal-headed avatar of wisdom and strength, while Renekton was a muscled behemoth with the likeness of a crocodile. Obviously, I think most of us know what Renekton looks like, but
Mhm.
with the new power, Naxos took centuries of studies while his brother embraced the bloodshed. So, like, Naxos was like, I have all of this time to live, and I am now this ascended being. I'm gonna study hard.
Right. That's
And
so
Renekton was like,
imagine
I'm gonna go conquer shit.
imagining like trying to think of like becoming this omnipotent god and then deciding like I'm gonna go bury my new jackal nose in some books is like wild to me.
Well, he's like, I have so many centuries to learn knowledge. Like,
I will be the smartest puppo in the world.
literally, and that's what he did.
Yeah.
And then I will kind of circle back to them, but I'm gonna get into Zareth, and
Zareth,
Azir's
yeah.
lore.
Okay.
Zareth, okay. So they're both kind of also intertwined lore.
Mm-hmm.
So, Zareth was born a nameless slave in Shurima thousands of years ago. He was the son of captured scholars, and the only prospect of endless servitude ahead. So they were like slaves, and they were going to remain slaves for the rest of their
Right. They were
life.
just like cursed to work for other people for no money for the rest of their lives.
Yes. And his
Damn.
parents had, like, in hopes of kind of getting him a better life, they taught him kind of the scholarly knowledge, and they wanted kind of to push him for something better.
Mm-hmm.
But his father was crippled during one of the excavations for a foundation of a monument to the emperor's favorite horse, and he was left to die on site of the accident.
Wait, that was a sentence. A monument to the emperor's favorite horse?
Yes, so his father was like excavating this monument, and he was like left crippled, and then he was just left to die. So like he got
Holy
crippled in
shit.
the excavation. Yeah. So, yeah, so his mother kind of feared for the fate of her son and was like, he's gonna face the same fate. So she begged for an esteemed tomb architect to take him as an apprentice. So like to take him under his wing. He like yeah, so she like gifted him to this tomb architect. And then he never saw his mother after that.
Oh my god. That's depressing.
Yeah. So his master dispatched him on errands to the Great Library of Nasus to retrieve specific texts and plans, like almost on a daily basis. And on one of those trips, he met a boy named Azir. And he was struggling to read some of the complex text, and actually, Zyrath assisted him in reading that grammar. So they kind of, a friendship bloomed between them. Although slaves were forbidden to have a name, Azir gifted Zyrath a name, and it was the one who shares is the meaning of that name.
Oh. Interesting. I didn't know that. The
Hmm.
one who shares.
Yeah, so that's the meaning of his name. So he was nameless up until this point.
TBH, I thought Zareth was a bad guy.
Oh, I mean, well, we'll get into it.
Okay.
So Azir saw that Zyrath was appointed to his household slaves. So he was like, I want him to be my personal attendant. So he was
Mhm.
like, I want Zyrath to be my slave. So with a
Damn.
shared love of knowledge, they became close as brothers, and they were like 10, right? They're like kiddos.
Right.
So on one of the tours of the Emperor's Dominion, assassins struck the royal caravan and killed all of Azir's brothers. So kind of going back to that, Azir was the youngest brother out of several siblings there, but he was never kind of meant to be in line for the throne.
Mm-hmm.
And Zyrath saved Azir's life from the assassins.
Mm-hmm.
And he was then left the only survivor and shockingly now the heir to the throne.
Well, okay.
And the emperor hated Azir for living while his more beloved sons had died.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Imagine being like, "Hi, Dad," and he's like, "I hate you because you were not meant to be the one who lived." Like, what?
Yeah. And like the emperor's wife was still like young enough to bear children, so like the promise to the throne was kind of conditional because if another heir was produced, then Azir would be killed, and that heir would now be the king
Oh
because they would
my god.
have been. Yeah. So with that in mind, Zyrath decided that Azir must learn to fight to survive, and Renekton actually took on the task of teaching him to kind of wield the sword and spear.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And Azir kind of shared his scholarly knowledge with Zyrath, so they kind of shared in knowledge of kind of fighting to survive and sharing knowledge, and they both excelled in both of those.
Damn.
Um, as the years passed, Zyrath took ever darker steps to keep the Emperor's wife from carrying a child to term, like using his magical abilities to corrupt every infant in the womb to keep Azir safe. And that's like how he justified it. He was like, killing whenever the emperor's wife would get pregnant, she was like using his powers and just like killing the babies.
Jesus Christ. Dude, Sharima's got some fucked up lore.
Yeah. And despite his best efforts, a new prince was born. Um, so when faced with the news, Zyrath used his growing magical powers to summon the elemental spirits of the deep forest and craft a terrible storm. Zyrath brought down like bolt after bolt of lightning on the queen's chambers and reduced it to rubble, killing the queen and the newborn son.
Oh my god. Jesus. Dude, this is like a period drama. Like this is like a pure like I guess it would be S drama, like Shariman drama.
Yeah. No, but it was justified though because his best friend would die if, the baby would live. So. So the emperor like rushed over to the queen's chambers only to be confronted with Zyrath and his hands were like ablaze with arcane power. And the emperor's guards attacked, but Zyrath burned them and the emperor to cindered skeletons. So he like
Jesus
killed
Christ.
the emperor.
Dude, there's so much bloodshed in the fucking history of Shariman's like leadership. What the fuck?
I know. And then Zyrath like blamed it on the mages of a conquered territory. So
Oh my.
he was like
Oh.
it was those guys.
Is that I wonder if that territory is Icathia.
I'm not actually sure, but that does seem right.
Because
Um
because then after the Icathian lord did say that like Shurima like marched their gates to essentially like slaughter everyone, and they fought back with like the power of their mages. So I wonder if maybe that's what sparked like, because that's where the darkened shit happened. So I wonder if this kind of led into the darkened war.
Well, Azir's first act upon taking up the throne was to lead a brutal campaign of retribution against the people. So, like,
Well, that's
he
yep.
retaliated.
Yep, that
Yeah.
is 100%. So that's what, yeah, that's where we get into the point, because I know that Renekton fought in the Icathian War, and he was lucky enough to be one of the Ascended who didn't get tainted by the Void.
Okay. All right. Well,
Look at
yeah. So
us.
now Azir was now a crowned emperor of Shurima, and Zyrath was at his side. Like his, yeah. And Zyrath had dreamed of this moment and expected Azir to end slavery in Shurima before naming him his
Oh,
brother,
oh
right?
boy.
He was like, okay, we've grown up together. We're
You
really
said
good friends.
surely you get rid of slavery, right? Like,
Yeah, and Azir didn't do that and continued to
oh,
expand his empire's borders and deflected kind of Zyrath's overtures
oh
regarding the end of
god.
slavery. So he's like, yeah, no, that's not happening. Um, so then kind of Zyrath was like, damn, Shurima is mortally bankrupt, and like he raged at Azir for kind of breaking his promise, because like as kids they were like, when I'm king, like, or if I ever become take the throne, then you'll be my brother, you know?
Ugh.
So, when kind of he pushed a little further on that, Azir reminded Zyrath that he was a slave and he should remember his place.
Oh my, this dude, this is wild. This is the craziest lore.
It's kind of fun. I really like it. Like it's terrible, but
It's
like
so
it's pretty
dramatic.
in
Like,
depth.
it's so
Hmm.
fucking dramatic. It's crazy.
Yeah. So like all of Zyrath's kind of hope for nobility kind of died, and he bowed into submission and accepted Azir's decision.
He gave
So,
up?
but yeah, but on that day he crafted a plan to steal the
Oh,
empire,
let's go.
and he knew he needed more power. So
Dude,
he was
I'm
like,
Team Zareth.
yeah. So Zaris was like, yeah, you know what? Fine. I will bow to you. Whatever. Like honestly, fuck our entire childhood. Like whatever. It's cool. Like um so Renekton's ascension kind of revealed that a mortal did not have to be chosen by the Sun Priest and that anybody could rise up, right? So, although the Sun Priest chose Azir to be able to ascend, Renekton also was able to ascend, so they were like, okay, I guess anybody can ascend. So Zyrath kind of plotted to steal the power of ascension.
Oh, okay. I think I know where this is going just based off the little bit I know about Azir.
Yeah. So he kind of like implanted kind of these thoughts into Azir's head. So he kind of fed him with these visions of a world-spanning empire, and finally Azir was like, I'm gonna undertake the ascension ritual. So on the day of Ascension, Azir marched towards the dais of Ascension with Zyrath at his side, and Zyrath had arranged a distraction for them by weakening the seal of a magical sarcophagus containing a fire beast. And when that creature was to break free from his bindings, Renekton and Nasus were the only warriors who could defeat it, but they were both absent that day of the Ascension.
Son of a
So,
bitch.
Zyrath had like stripped Azir of the only two beings who might save him by like them not being there.
Son of
So
a bitch.
Azir was like standing under the sun disk about to begin the ritual, and the Emperor turned to Zyrath and told him that he was now a free man, and he and all of Shurima's slaves were now released from their bonds of servitude.
What?
So like when he was standing under the sun disk, he like looked at Zyrath and he's like, "It's okay, you're free now." Like, yeah,
The
and he
fuck, man?
embraced Zyrath. and he named him his eternal brother.
Oh my god. Oh, okay. All right, hold on. We gotta back it up here for a second. So,
Okay.
homie, 5 minutes ago said, "You're a slave. You should remember that. You're beneath me." And then Zareth was like, "Ooh, you should do the ascension." So then Azir was like, "I'm gonna do the ascension," and Zareth was like, "You know what? That's crazy. That's a great idea. I think that's a great
Yeah, it's like, how
original
did you come up
idea.
with that idea?
Yeah, that's a great idea that you thought of all on your own. You should definitely do that."
Hmm.
And then when he was there, he told his lifelong friend, who he again 5 minutes ago said, "You're a slave. Remember that. Hey, you're free."
I mean, to be fair, Azir's like when reading through both Azir and Zyrath's lore, there were some differences, but I kind of tried to add in both parts.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess Azir kind of stated it before where he was trying to end slavery, but it was way too complicated, so he kind of just shut Zyrath down in the
I
moment,
see.
right? So like it was something that he did want for Shurima, but like it wasn't obtainable, so I think that that's kind of why he snapped. So there's kind of
Hmm.
two sides to the story, right?
I see. Kind of like a heat of the moment, like said things we didn't mean kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, and they were brothers too. Like
Yeah.
in reality, they were practically brothers. So he was like, "Shut up, you slave." You know? So anyway, so Zyrath was like stun locked, right? He was like, that's everything he ever desired.
Mhm.
But his plans kind of hinged upon Azir's death, and nothing was going to dissuade him at this point because he's already got this far. The plan's already in motion. Like the chains are weakened. Like, you know?
Right.
So no matter how satisfied he was, like he couldn't turn back and sacrifice at all. Like he was set in his mind that he would take this power, and he was hurt, you know? Like he was still kind of hurt.
Mhm.
So, with anger and grief, Zyrath blasted Azir from his place on the dais, watching through tears as his former friend burned to ash. So, Zyrath took Azir's place in the light of the sun, and the sun like filled him, reshaping his flesh into the ascended being, the Zyrath ascended being. And with the power being not his to take, the sun all but destroyed Shurima. It like all the temples like burned and like it brung
What?
ruination upon the city.
Dude, I'm like seeing this as a movie in my head and it's wild.
I know. Like I feel like it's so like visual of like you can see what happened.
I
And
like
like
I can hear like the orchestra music like ramping up as the sun is like filling Zareth and just destroying everything around the sun. Dude, it looks wild the way I'm imagining it.
yeah. And then the sun disk fell, and the entire empire, built on generations of emperors, was undone in a single day.
Jesus Christ.
So Zyrath held the Sun Priests in the grip of his magic, preventing them from ending the ritual, taking in more and more power. And it was remade into like all of his flesh was remade into a glowing vortex of arcane power.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So
She
Renekton and Nasus had to roll up because like the commotion was
right. Dude,
yeah.
I just imagine the two of them being like, "Huh, everything's everything's crumbling." And then
Yeah.
I just imagine that's what like Renekton's saying, and then Nasus is like, "Yeah, we should probably go check that
Probably
out."
go probably go check that out a little bit. With their powers, the brothers were able to drag Zyrath towards the Tomb of Emperors, and it was a vault whose locks and wards were impossible to break and it only answered to the blood of the emperors. So it was like an unbreakable tomb.
I see.
And Renekton wrestled Zyrath within and called Nasus to seal the vault behind him. And Nasus like didn't want to do that because like Renekton would be trapped in that vault with him. So he only did it because it was the only way to prevent Zyrath from escaping.
Oh,
Renekton and Zyrath both fell into eternal darkness, where they remained locked in an endless battle as the once great civilization of Shurima collapsed.
that is so
So
intense.
yeah. And centuries passed of them locked in together, and in time, Renekton's mighty strength warned and left him vulnerable to Xyrath's influence. And Xyrath would poison him with lies and illusions, and twisted Renekton's mind, filling him with misplaced bitterness towards Nasus. So he was like, "Your brother locked you in here intentionally. He doesn't care about you. You're
Oh
worthless.
my
All of
god.
this for centuries, bro."
Stop! Dude, he's trying to drive a wedge between my favorite siblings. Stop.
hmm And when the tomb was finally discovered by Sivir and
Oh. Yeah,
Cassiopeia,
Cassiopeia.
Cassiopeia, they were freed, right? So Sivir and Cassiopeia
Oh,
opened the
oh,
tomb.
but like all of them were freed.
Yeah, so Xyrath
Oh.
and Renekton were freed at that
Did
point.
they like do you think at some point while they were all down there they had like like maybe just one like heart to heart? Like Zareth was like, this isn't what I wanted.
It could be, but yeah. So Xyrath, like when he like came up, he kind of felt another soul return to life beneath the sand, who
Hmm.
he thought was dead, and Azir was also a newly resurrected ascended.
I just got
So
chills.
yeah, so it turns out like when he was killed, when Azir was killed, he was also then like somebody pleaded for his life and he was ascended at that point rather than being dead.
Oh
Um
my god.
And Xyrath was like, "There's no peace for either of us if one of us, or if both of us are alive at the same time." So Azir was like, I'm gonna take back what was lost." So two sets of brothers ascended, fated against one another. So
Oh,
yeah,
dude, I have goosebumps. That is so crazy.
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Oh my, wait,
My
okay.
favorite, yeah,
Shuriman lore might be my favorite lore now.
that's what I'm saying is like, yes, the other lores are kind of cool, but Shuriman lore is
Dude,
kind of sick,
I
like.
fucking love shawarma.
Right? Shawarma slaps.
Shawarma slaps, bro.
Shawarma do be slapping. Azir has a kind of a cool voice line where he says, "Let us return to our rightful places, Nasus," which is
Ooh.
kind of cool. And
Oh,
Renekton says,
so I see.
"Yeah." So like, anyways, because they're kind of like the kind of hurt brothers, like I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, cause yeah. And then Renekton says, "Xyrath, we will give them what they deserve."
No.
And then Renekton says, "You should have done a better job locking me away, Nasus."
No, I don't
Because
want
he
to see
like,
them fight.
I know he like treats it like it's like intentional. That like, yeah,
No. No.
yeah.
That's
So that's
so
kind
fucking
of.
sad.
So they're kind of all four of them. I would say are very intertwined lore
Yeah.
wise.
Oh,
You
for
know.
sure. Yeah. That sounds to me like I feel like Shurima has a really good setup in terms of like making sure
hmm
everybody's kind of like interconnected correctly because as we learn more bit by bit when we do these spotlights, it just kind of seems like Shurima's got its shit together, you know? I mean, they fell, so they no longer have their shit together, but like at one point they did.
Yeah. At least the Riot team has a very good way of connecting all the
Yeah, for
stories.
sure, for sure. Whoever's in charge of
I
Shurima,
don't know
excellent
if
job.
I don't know if Shurima itself was all that put together with like, all the slavery and like the
Yeah, I
empire
mean, yeah,
issues
that
and stuff,
was
but like,
that was a little. I mean, for an ancient civilization or whatever, I
hmm
guess, yeah, there were some flaws,
yeah,
but like they were working towards ending it, you know. Like Azir was like,
yeah,
"We finally got here, my dudes. We're all free people," and then Zareth kind of had to go yoink and fuck it all up.
yeah. But to be fair, like Xyrath was a nameless kind of like slave all
Hmm.
of his life, and he thought that he was doing what was right,
Yeah.
but he
Ugh.
wasn't, and then he kind of fucked up. Like he fucked
Rough.
up. Yeah.
Definitely rough.
So I have one more kind of Shuriman god, and that is Janna. So,
Tornado bitch.
mortals. Literally, and it's pretty much her lore. So mortals like would place their hopes and faiths into the storms and winds as they swept across Runeterra, and the winds would sometimes seem to answer. So like seafarers would spot a bluebird right before the tailwind would billow their sails, or others could swear they heard whistling in the air right before the storm to warn them of the approach. So some even swore that they had seen a bird transform into a woman with tapered ears and flowing hair, and the mysterious maiden would float above the water and direct the wind with the flick of her staff.
Ooh.
Mhm. This faithful spirit of the wind they called Janarum. Jan- it's like Jan apostrophe AHREM.
Janarum. Janarum?
Janarum.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an ancient Shuriman word meaning guardian.
Okay.
So, because she would always show up in a time of need. As time went on, she became more simply known as Jana, and she assisted the seafaring people, and they appreciated it because they relied on calm waters for travel. Statues and shrines were raised in gratitude of Jana's benevolence. So they like would rise all these like statues and shrines, and when the Shuriman Empire enveloped the city, the displays of devotion would continue for a period of time, but then the emperor issued a decree saying that false idols were not allowed and Janus statues were torn down.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
despite like the ascended warriors god like despite they were all worshiping like these ascended god warriors, but it's cool.
Jesus.
And yeah, and many of the people still offered quiet prayers to Jana because like yeah, because they all relied on her for like passage of ships.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the mortals still would wear a bluebird as an amulet, and it was just kind of like these little personal tokens of Janna's honor because they weren't allowed to have statues anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And Janna would continue to aid the vulnerable who called upon her, even though she's kind of shut down. And after the great empire fell, the lands became a desert. Janna kind of shielded the city known as Zon from the turmoil of all of that war and chaos.
Okay.
And to this day, Janet kind of still looks over the city of Zon, and Zonites all know whether they fight for air or with the toxic clouds of Zon Gray. Um, they kind of know that Janna won't abandon them, so she kind of switched from Shurima to Zon Guardian.
Oh, interesting. So she
And I
was
think that she's,
Shuriman in the beginning, but she's in Zon now? Like currently?
yeah. So
Oh,
she kind of fends off other threats
I
for
see.
Zon.
Okay.
I don't really like her that much. I feel like she's kind of flat. Um,
Like as like personality and character wise, or
I feel like god-wise, I feel like
yeah.
we've talked about quite a few cool gods
Yeah.
today,
And she's just kind of
and
lackluster.
she's just like a bluebird who like can tell when it's gonna storm. Like,
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I guess
yeah.
comparatively speaking, she's not very like exciting,
hmm
but she all right,
Yeah,
I guess.
she's okay. She's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she all
and
right, I
I don't
guess.
really have anything like exciting because I don't know. I don't feel like any of her voice lines would really like mean anything to kind
Yeah.
of like you know
Yeah, I
yeah.
get you.
Yeah, so that's me.
Oh
That's the
yeah.
information I have today.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you. Sharima was a wild roller coaster right there. That was
Yeah,
that was insane.
pretty cool story. It's because I would say the whole thing is like one story, which
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's cool that like in terms of like the lore of their gods, like or like of the ascended or I mean cuz the stories behind like the quote unquote gods of Targon or the gods of the Freljord or whatever, like they're not as cohesive because like the siblings in the Freljord, even though they're siblings, they all went their separate ways and did separate things at birth. or like a creation.
Mhm.
So they don't have like a cohesive, super intertwined story. I mean, Valdi and Ornn fought, but that was pretty much it. This is like from start to finish, all of them had something to do with each other. That's wild.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Um, well, to wrap
Wow.
everything up, I have Targon. Do you have anything else before
Ooh.
we move on?
Nope. I got
Nope.
nothing. I I think that that's all for me.
Yeah, I think you presented one of the greatest storylines in League lore, so it's fine.
Thank you, thank you.
Um
I had so much fun. That was
yeah,
like
I
it was fun
bet.
to look into it.
Yeah, I feel like it would be such a blast to get to learn. Like I can imagine my reactions have been so genuine because I knew nothing about Shuriman lore. I can't imagine
Mm.
figuring it out. Like I can't imagine
Oh
reading
yeah.
through everything and being like, "Holy shit, what?" um
Yeah, and especially because I don't really know the characters that much either. So like
mhm.
then learning who they are stuff
Yeah.
is kind
Does
of
this
mhm.
make you like want to play anybody? Like are you like, "Damn, I want to play Renekton now?"
Mm, I've thought about it. Like I feel like it could be cool, but I don't know. I feel like mostly it kind of makes me want to try like Azir and like
Azir,
Nasus a little bit because
I
like
want to try
Azir's so
Nasus
annoying.
actually. Yeah, Azir's really annoying.
Azir's so annoying,
Yeah,
which
so
I
it could
feel
be
like could be
fun
fun
to
to
be
play as.
annoying. Honestly,
Yeah.
Xerath is also really annoying and he's really fun. His
Mhm.
ult is super fun.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's
definitely be interesting to see now.
yeah. Okay. Well, let me take you guys on over to the tallest peak in all of Valoran, to Mount Targon.
Ooh.
Um I will say, actually, before we get that started, I do have one like kind of like off champion because we weren't quite sure. Me and Cap talked about this a little bit. We weren't quite sure if this champion fit in because they're not exactly a god so much as they are like death. But we decided to include Kindred, so I'll go over Kindred real quick because their lore is like short as hell. Um, Kindred is basically the paradox of death. Um, they're a personification of death with two sides, wolf and lamb. Lamb offers a swift and peaceful death for those who are willing to accept it, and wolf offers this kind of like chase or this hunt with people who fight death. And you can see a really good example of this with the newest like cinematic from League. It's when Tryndamere is ulting because he goes kind of like invulnerable when he's about like he can't actually die. It depicts his ult as him fighting Wolf because he's not willing to accept death. So during that like short time that he's invulnerable when he ults, he's actually fighting off Wolf. Um and that's basically it. I mean, like the story that we're told is that by Wolf and Lamb themselves is that there was a pale man who was hated because all things that live must one day meet this man. So because he was so lonely, he split himself in half so that he would never have to be alone again. And this formed Wolf and Lamb. And that's honestly, that's really all that we know. We know they have like a small following of people who are like fascinated, and we know that everybody knows who Kindred is because, like it said, eventually everyone will have to meet Kindred. The only other thing that we know is that if you, for some reason, escape Kindred, be like if you're claimed by the Shadow Isles, for example, your soul is claimed, so Wolf and Lamb cannot come to get it. But they do go hunting for those people. I'm not really quite sure anything else about that, but I know that that's a thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
That's cool. I think Kindred's really cool.
me too. And I like that their voice lines are all them talking to each other. So like, there's one. I think there's like two iterations of everywhere Lamb went, Wolf was sure to follow, and then another one is everywhere Wolf went. Wait, yeah, okay, the opposite is true. I forgot which one I said. Um, but
Okay.
but there's one where both of them started. So there's like for everywhere Wolf went, for everywhere Lamb went, and then they switch it up and they say that to each other. But my feature quote that I put because it's my favorite is Kindred. when you're like making a really short move, like between jungle camps, a lot of the time you'll hear um one of them will go never one, and then the other one will go without the other. And it's like, it's just this like
Oh,
very, it honestly, they're kind of like sweet together, but it makes sense because like they're the personification of death. They're the same person split in two because they were so lonely. And so they talk a lot about like what death is like, which is like very dark. But like, I love Kindred's voice lines. They're so cool. But yeah,
cool.
just a short little snippet before we get into Targon, which I'm gonna start with the oldest known Targonian god, which is actually Zoe, despite the fact that she's a teenager.
Okay.
She
Oh,
was born on Mount Targon to the Rakor tribe. And remember that name because it's going to come around later. One day, she essentially was being taught with a bunch of other students, and she had a few teachers that were putting them through Targonian learnings, just like basic learnings. And Zoe got bored, so she was like, "I'm gonna ditch this shit and I'm gonna go play," and that's what she did. When she scurried off, the teacher started to chase her, and the aspect of Twilight. For those who don't know, aspects are like gods. We talked about them a little earlier, but also we've talked about them in the past. Essentially, Targon is like where all of Mount Targon is constantly being pulled up, like it's constantly growing and changing because it's being pulled up to the heavens by the magic of the gods that are up there. And that plane of existence is what Targon really is. And Mount Targon is just a tribute to it because it rises up into the heavens. So these aspects are the ones who are pulling Mount Targon up to them. And the aspect of Twilight took notice of Zoe and just decided to watch her. She was like, this one kind of seems interesting. Let me just kind of like sit up in the sky and keep an eye on her, right? So she did. And when the teachers caught up with her, the aspect of Twilight actually stepped in. And this is the part that always gets me. The aspect of Twilight looked at Zoe and said, "I have these 6 options. You can take one." And offers a sword, a book of like a whole bunch of teachings, a bag of gold coins, a devotion rug, which is like a magic carpet, a silk rope, and a toy ball. Right? These are the 6 things
okay.
offered. This this girl took the toy ball. She said, "Fuck a sword. Fuck anything that could help me de-escalate this situation. I'm gonna take the toy ball."
Look,
I mean, I guess she was just like being clever because what she did was she took that ball, kicked it, and it bounced off of all of her teachers, to which she was like cackling about. And her teachers were like, "The fuck, kid?" And she was just like laughing. And like, so the aspect of Twilight was intrigued by her because she had this kind of like carefree, like spirited energy. And so she was like, "Hey kid, how would you like to go see the universe?" And she just opens a portal. Like
hmm.
like I think Zoe was like a
Girl.
preteen or something and just like invited to go see the whole universe. So Zoe was like, yeah, I would love that." And she just yeeted herself into the portal. Just like
I mean,
no
W.
questions asked, just dived right in. When she did that, her and the aspect of Twilight were actually merged together as one. And from then, essentially, she would travel to different dimensions and she would reshape worlds, bend rules, and she actually even formed a very like unlikely friendship with Aurelian Soul. Um, their voice lines to each other from like Legends of Runeterra are super cute because she calls him Space Puppy, or space dragon.
Oh.
And like he says to her, he's like, your favorite star, I created it. And she's like, oh my god, you mean the supernova one by the space station? That's so cool. And like they're like so cute. They're like little like Aurelian Soul's like this all-knowing, all-powerful god that created the stars and the universe and all this shit in it. And Zoe's like a literal child going like, space puppy, I love you. I think it's so
Space
funny.
Puppy is so sick.
That's
Your
all.
nickname.
That's what I call him now because I heard the lines a long time ago when I started playing Aurelian Soul. Like I looked up his voice lines. Because fun fact, when I think about playing a champion, a lot of the time I'll go look up their voice lines to see, because you have to hear them all game, you know. And so if you don't like them, it gets annoying. So when I looked them up, I watched the Legends of Runeterra ones, and the voice lines he's got with Zoe are so funny because she'll say something stupid, and then he'll go, "I just," and it's so like he's so done with her. It's adorable. But yeah, her whole thing is basically that she is now the aspect of Twilight, so she's like a little different than a lot of the ones we know, because a lot of these hosts for the aspects that we're going to talk about, they're imbued with the power, but they aren't actually like possessed by any means. She is the aspect of Twilight. They have merged together as one. The aspect is not hosting, or she's not hosting the aspect, and the aspect is not like completely gone or imbued her with power, but they legitimately are two halves of one being now. Yeah. The quote I have for Zoe, because she is kind of stuck being a teenager for a while, when she travels through like this kind of like interdimensional plane, time passes really, really slow for us. Or no, really fast for us, but slow for her. So she'll spend like a year hopping around different dimensions and come back, and it'll be like 1,000 years. So I think she's supposed to be like, I think she's 6,000 or 7,000 years old or something like that. Like she's ancient. Like thousands of years ago, she was born in Mount Targon. So she's seemingly around for forever. And she's so chaotic, and she's such a trickster. Like she's just fucking shit up because she wants to. Let me see what the quote that I have for her is. I bring a message to you all, a warning, a sigil. But first, I want to see the sparkle flies, because she is a child.
Sparkle flies.
Popping over to our next champ. I've got 3 of them that are kind of a little intertwined with each other, so I'm gonna save them for last. Which means we'll talk about Tark. I gotta be honest with you, I don't really care about Tark. I don't know much about him. Like I never did before, and I didn't even really know what he was like imbued with in terms of power, because like all of them are the aspect of something, right? And Tark is just kind of like this pretty boy. And so I was like, I don't like, maybe it's like the aspect of beauty or something. But it turns out that that's just like his personality. Like he's just obsessed with like the natural beauty of things. So he was a soldier in Demacia, and he was like a devout soldier. He went like above and beyond in terms of duty. He was of a prestigious position within the Demacian infantry. He was best friends, like lifelong best friends with Garen. And Garen was like, you are going to do amazing things. You have like the highest potential. But Tark fucked up. He committed an act that's actually punishable by execution when he abandoned his post, his guard post, to go look through a magical ruin. One of the things that we've talked about many times before is Demacia hates magic. And I mean they hate it. So him leaving his post is a kind of a big deal, but him leaving his post to do something involving magic means that the overseeing council of Demacia was like, dude, you're gonna die for that. So yeah, he had his whole life going. Demacia was like, you're one of our best, and then he was like, haha, magic. And
It's
yeah.
tempting.
I mean, yeah, he saw, his whole personality was that he always saw like the beauty in everything that surrounded him.
Mhm.
I imagine magic looks very, very beautiful. Why would somebody
Mhm.
who's obsessed with the natural beauty of the world not want to indulge in the natural beauty of arcane magic? You know what I mean? Like, it makes sense. Like, it's just who he is as a person. And his heart was there. Like, that was where his heart lied. So he followed his heart, and he kind of like went into these like magical ruins, and Demacia was like, we don't really fuck with that, you're gonna die for it. And it was only because Garen intervened that he was instead sentenced to be exiled from Demacia, which was often one of the punishments that they carried out. Execution was usually saved for mages, but anybody
Okay.
who's seen dabbling in magic, and in this case he was, oftentimes faces execution. So Garen was basically like, homie's been good to us, just send him away, you know, just
Yeah.
eat him out of here, you don't have to kill him.
Exile.
Yeah. Exile. We want to see him leave. When he left, essentially he decided, or he was like coerced into climbing Mount Targon. Climbing Mount Targon is meant to be like a redemption or like a soul searching kind of journey. So those who've committed like terrible sins, or those who are not sure of their purpose, oftentimes will try to climb this mountain. Something else we've discussed in the past, it's not an easy climb. Like, almost everyone dies. You know, the survival rate is not good.
Yeah.
And part of the reason is because the mountain is constantly being pulled up. It's constantly shifting around and everything. So there's no way to know the way up. Like, there's no carved path. If there was a carved path, it's changed since 5 minutes ago. So both ascending and descending Mount Targon is extremely difficult. And a good majority of people who make it to the top, they don't see anything. Like, the view is probably gorgeous, but like the aspects don't give a shit about most people who climb it. So a lot of people are sentenced to climb it. A lot of people go because they're like, my life doesn't have any purpose, and I'm either going to die on the way up, or I'm going to find purpose when I get to the top. And that was pretty much Tarek's like idea. So he had an unwavering spirit that got him to the top. And when he made it, he was essentially reborn as the host of the aspect of the protector. So his so his whole thing is that he now serves as the shield of Valoran, and he takes in all of life's beauty just the way that he had before, but all while imbued with this like incredibly protective magic from the aspect of protection. So he is like this big silly oaf who shields you nonstop. But I've actually never had a Tark support, so I don't know exactly what he's like as a support. But I know that he does a lot of stunning and a lot of tanking and a lot of shielding. But the featured quote I have for him is, he says, "I've been to the top of the mountain and the bottom of the gutter. There's much to learn from both." And so that's kind of like, I think it showcases his personality, because he's just like always taking in like the best that he can from what's around him. Yeah. Okay. I'm so stuck at where to start here. Probably with, I think, maybe I should do them all together. I guess I should do Diana and Leona first. So the last three that I have are Diana, Leona, and Pantheon. Pantheon has a little involvement from Leona, but Leona and Diana are like, their story is one story, kind of like Azir and Xerath. And also, their story is one for all of you Pride Month enjoyers.
Woo!
Let's go. So I'll start with them, and I actually want to read out the I want to read out a part of the story, so I'll do that afterwards. But Diana and Leona kind of have a parallel storyline, but they ultimately go in different directions.
Okay.
Leona was Solari born, so it was born in Mount Targon to the Solari people, or to the Solari worshippers. This means that they worship the sun. They are devout to the sun. They that is what they teach, it's what they preach, it's what they believe. That's it. That's all she wrote, you know. And on the opposite side of things, Diana was found by the Solari on the top of Mount Targon as a baby. And so they raised her, but it was unclear as to where she actually came from, right? And the two of them grew up together. They basically were best friends, but also they were a little something more. You know?
Oh?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ow? Ow?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they grew up. I don't think it's ever stated whether or not they were truly in love, but it is, if you guys have never read it, there is a excerpt of a whole bunch of different stuff on League's website called Rise With Me. And it's got poems, it's got letters, it's got diary entries, letters from like princesses, and there's so the Rakor that I was talking about earlier, I said remember that tribe. So Diana was the ward of the Rakor, and there are a whole lot of people in that tribe, including Pantheon, but she was the ward. And essentially it was kind of like this thing of Diana felt very out of place, and Leona was very comfortable. Like, her whole life was basically laid out for her. They were like, you are super devout, you are you're a protector, you're a nurturer, you are destined to do great things, you're gonna be like one of the best warriors that we have. And Leona didn't care for much except for making sure that Diana was protected from the judgment of others, because it was very clear that she was an outcast and people were very aware of that. And so I think them growing, I feel like it's very much like Diana was like the edgy, broody girl, and Leona was like the I can fix her. But I want to read you something because this is so cute to me. It is from Leona's journal, right? And it is a little excerpt, and it says, "How I could ask someone to attend the festival with me. A note? Is that too not straightforward enough? Lots of notes as it is, but I love getting notes from her. She always makes time to answer, always very thoughtful and smart. The next one is ask her to walk with me. When? I have skirmishes every night this week. Flowers? Don't know if she likes flowers or which flowers she likes. A meal? Never shared a meal together. Might be too public. What if the meal is gross? Is that a bad omen? Offer to train with her offer to train her with her shield. She doesn't use her shield much. That could work. Or maybe she doesn't like using her shield. She doesn't seem to like skirmishes. Debate some scripture. Good chance to talk in person, get to see her at her best, be brilliant, try to impress her. Maybe tell her you need help with a big project for oratory. No, she's not in the same class as you. This is stupid. Pray together? Good excuse for privacy, but she would never say yes to that. Ask her if she already has plans. Be casual. Doesn't have to be as more than friends. She probably doesn't want to go alone. What if she's already going with someone? Who would she even go with? Tell her I don't have a companion. I guess that's not a terrible option. Don't ask. Just see her there and ask her to dance with you. Also not a terrible option. Why is this so hard? It's so cute. Just her like debating on how to ask out Diana. It's actually the most adorable thing.
That's cute.
Then I believe, where's the other one? There was a meme that I saw about it where it was like Diana at 3 a.m. years later. Oh my god, she wasn't asking me to pray with her. She was asking me out. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to post it in the Discord because I'm not. Oh yeah, here it is. The Diary of Diana, 11 toward the Nadir, which I believe is the date. This leads into our Diana lore. So it says, the sun is not a loving, life-giving mother to us. She is hateful, burning with malice. She aims to drive us all underground to avoid her scorching light. I don't really think that, but it doesn't feel like she loves me. I have my 3rd day of punishment tomorrow. I can only hope for clouds or rain, snow, anything. My skin is red and raw and I just want to sleep. But it was worth it. The debate with Leona is probably the closest we will ever come to talking in public, and we got to do it on our own terms. I didn't even bring up the light that pierces the darkness at night. I didn't have time before Nemaya dragged me off to Thalia for her retribution. I wonder what they would have done if I had. I hate everyone here. I don't want to celebrate anything with any of them. I don't want their lying smiles and their celebratory gazes burning holes through me. Instead of going to the Nightless Eve, which is the festival that she was being asked out to, I'll just climb. Get someplace higher than this. Maybe look at the stars. Watch the nighttime light. Besides, the only person I would want to go with would probably not want to be seen with me. Not after this kind of public penance. Probably not before it. So I have nothing to lose. And it's just the whole time they're like, oh god, it's hurtful to like read through and watch as they like talk so like lovingly about each other, but they like they aren't, because the lore says that they like shared a kiss and that they held hands and like all of this in secret when they were growing up. But by the time the that it actually like came to be, they just like were afraid of like what it would look like in public. And then this is the last one I'm gonna read before I get into like the real big one. Diary of Diana, 1 toward the Nadir. So this is, I think, like right before her ascent of Mount Targon. And she writes, I am beside myself with rage. She wasn't trying to preach to me. She was asking me to go with her to the festival. And then it's just, Diana, you are such a fool. And it's just like, their love story is so cute.
That is cute.
Yeah. And basically what happened...
So like everything worked out perfectly, right?
Well. Yikes. Basically... she decided this night of this festival, there's like a very cute picture of them together. The night of this festival, they decided to hang out instead. And so like there's like this little like excerpt from Diana's diary where she basically said that Leona grabbed her hand and just like kind of looked at her and said, not yet, and then they shared a kiss. And so, like, yes, theoretically, everything kind of, like, worked out together for them, except for, after this, Diana had started to like kind of search for knowledge because she wanted to know more. She felt like the like Solari teachings that she was given when she was being brought up weren't enough, or they weren't the full story of everything. So
Yeah.
what they decide, like what she decided to do, was she decided to go hunt for maybe some lost knowledge, or maybe some further explanations as to like the lore of the Solari, or like the history of the teachings, because she just found like plot holes basically.
Yeah.
And when she went searching, she found this little kind of like alcove with like a depiction of the sun and the moon in harmony. And
Oh.
her predisposed, like her disdain that she had for the Solari and their fakeness and whatever, it just kind of like all bubbled up in her, where she was kind of like, dude, fuck this place. Like, this entire time we've been learning about one half of this. What about the other half? Why are we hiding that? You guys all seem fake, and it's because you are. You're only teaching us one part. When do we get to learn about this other part? So she basically
Yeah.
takes it back to Leona. And Leona was like, that's heresy. You cannot talk of that. And Diana's like, okay,
Yeah.
but why not? Like, it's obviously part of our history. Why aren't we allowed to know about it? And Leona's like, you can't say anything to anybody. If you say anything, like you're gonna get like killed or imprisoned or whatever. And like, keep in mind, like, she's in love with her, so she's not gonna do anything. Like, she's not gonna treat it like it's a
Yeah.
huge deal. But the Solari will, because Diana's not technically one of them. She was found as a baby and raised by the Solari, but she herself is not one. So she's on thin ice already. And so basically, Diana is like, fuck this. I'm climbing Mount Targon. Like, I'm out this bitch. Nobody here understands me anyways. I'm carving my own path. I'm not gonna live by the Solari's, blasphemous one half of the teachings and whatnot. So she decides to climb,
Let's go.
and Leona, being the woman that she is, follows her, right? So they make this climb a little distance apart from each other, but basically together. Because Diana
Yeah.
doesn't know it, but Leona is like, I have to protect her. Like, I can't,
Hmm.
there's nothing else that I care about besides her. I have to protect her. And at
Yeah.
this point, Leona's like a top student. She is like the chosen one of the class, right? So
Yeah.
the outcast goes missing, and Leona goes missing, and the Solari are like, what the fuck? Where are they? What could have happened? We had this festival, everything was nice. They're like, they're both doing their skirmishes and learning to use their shields and everything. Like, well, they wouldn't leave, right? So they go up this mountain, and this mountain, it can take you a day or it can take you years. It depends, right? But they go
Yeah.
through this mountain. They have to like battle things on the way. They both have to overcome their own obstacles. Even though Leona's following Diana, like, the mountain's ever changing, so she loses sight of her a few times, and has to like defeat obstacles of her own before like eventually running into them. When Diana gets to the top, unbeknownst to her, Leona was right behind her, right? And
Yeah.
when you get to the top of Mount Targon, you either see nothing or you see like kind of a glimmering wall that you can walk beyond. And that's like
Okay.
the kind of like portal to the aspects, right? So she gets to the top and she gets like through this little like plane, and the aspects decide, we're going to grant you the power of the moon and all of the knowledge that comes with it. But what they didn't say was, we're also going to grant this other person the power of the sun. So the moon and the sun aspects both send down their power to imbue Leona and Diana, causing a rift between them and forcing them to be eternal rivals.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
it
so they
is
can't be
no,
together.
they cannot be together
That's
because
kind of fun.
they are destined to be against each other. And actually, that's immediately what happens. They come back with these, they're burdened with all of the knowledge of the sun and the moon and how the Solari and the Lunari work. So Diana is now basically the worshipped host of the aspect of the Lunari, and Leona's the worshipped sun god. Like, I mean, like that
Wow.
they're literally polar opposites. So there's a fight that happens between the two of them, which I can only imagine would be the most tragic thing in the entire planet to see. But it's said in legends that the battle between the two of them was long and tough, and both of them were pulling their punches, but they continued to fight, and that the battle was equally lit by the light of the sun and the moon. And what eventually happened was when they separated, Diana fled to the more remote parts of Mount Targon to essentially reestablish the Lunari following and learn about the Lunari and her power and find a way to reunite the Lunari and the Solari no matter the cost. Rise with Me is an incredible look at what these two were, and it is a tragic reminder of what they've become. Because there's a like a cinematic, which I will happily show you after this. There's a cinematic between the two of them, or like that has a moment where it's like a Lunari and a Solari individual. They're like trying to be together, and it's called the Vaulted Road, because there's like this whole thing like, oh, when the sun meets the moon, the path to freedom will be revealed. And it is like, it's beautiful, but there's also like a very like tragic moment between the two of them. And so now I'm like, God, my fucking heart hurts. And they've basically gone their separate ways. So Diana is now like reestablishing the Lunari, versus Leona is now leading the Solari. She bears a Zenith sword and the Shield of Daybreak, and she wards off anything that threatens Targonians, and the Sun Forgers, which is who she's a part of. Which included at one time Pantheon. But my quotes for the two of them are like, they're a nod to each other, but they're just normal lines, so you have to know their lore in order to pick it up. Leona's quote is, "The sun always rises." And then Diana's quote is, "The moon also rises."
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's very...
Huh.
I like it.
That's cool. That's cute.
Yes. And then Pantheon, who possibly has one of the dopest lores ever, and also is my husband.
Legally binding. Legally binding.
legally bound husband, yes. So his actual name is Atreus, and he is from the Rokar tribe, or Rockor tribe, that we keep talking about. So he is part of this tribe that is basically during the beginning of his like real story is when they are headed to war. They actually call upon the Sun Forgers and Leona's help because they feel that they need the aspect of the sun as an ally in the fight, or else they will lose it. And we're not talking like a small fight. This is like a full-on war. And so they were like, "Leona, please, like, we need your help." And she's like, "No, I will not be fighting this battle." And so Atreus and his friend Pylus, his best friend, they decide, if the Solari are not going to help us, then we are going to march through and climb that mountain, and we are going to directly ask the gods for help. So that's what they do. And in order to get up the mountain, they actually had to fight Leona because she was trying to
Oh.
like prevent them from interfering with the aspects and with Targonians and, you know, the natural order of things.
Yeah.
So she actually fought Pantheon, and he persevered. Even though she had the power of a god, he persevered, and they made it past her. So uh once they made the trek up, I believe their trek was rather short. It was like a week long versus some people taking total years. But
Yeah.
Atreus had no issue. He just had this incredible strength and determination to get up the mountain. His friend Pylus, unfortunately, did not share that quality, and so he died in Atreus's arms at the top of the mountain.
Oh.
And so he made
Aw.
the final step with Pylus in his arms, and he begged the gods for help. And the gods basically said, "You are not worthy of our
Mm.
help." However, the god of war needs a body to fight, because this is not like a tiny matter. This is going to be a bad fight, and there's going to be a lot of bloodshed, and we do feel the need to intervene because this could be the end of mortals. So you are going to host Pantheon, the god of war. And
Mm.
again, this is different because it's not like the typical hosting where they're imbued with the power or given like the weapons of a celestial god to fight with. He legitimately took over. Pantheon took over Atreus's body. He had no control. He was able to
Yeah.
basically take a back seat in the brain, and Pantheon controlled him. So
Yeah.
whereas Leona and Diana, they're cursed with all of the knowledge and the power, but they don't have like somebody actually controlling their body. This
Yeah.
was full-fledged, like he just had to let this happen. So
Yeah.
essentially over the next like few months to years, whatever it might be, Atreus was in the back of his own mind watching as Pantheon used his body to go on a rampage to search for Aatrox. um so this was during the Darken War. Aatrox and Pantheon are kind of like equals, but on opposite planes, because Pantheon is the god of war, but Aatrox would basically be like the demon of war, because he's like the
Okay.
darken, like bloodlust, war hungry kind of champion. So
Yeah.
this is a big fight, and Atreus's body was strong, and he had this determination and this will unlike anything that Pantheon had ever seen. That's why he chose his body. But
Mm.
Pantheon was in control of it, so he could only do so much to you. Like he got the strength, and he got the body, and he was able to you know, fly around and do stuff as a god, but he didn't share the same will or determination that Atreus did. So he lost his fight with Aatrox. Aatrox's blade actually slit, like it went straight through Pantheon's body, his torso, which is why he has that scar. Um,
Yeah.
and it actually not only killed Pantheon, the god, but it erased his constellation from the sky.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Wow.
Aatrox had killed a god. And when he had figured out what he had done and he saw the power drain from Atreus's body, he basically said, "Well, I don't have to worry about you." And he just left Atreus to die. And during this battle took place halfway up Mount Targon, because Aatrox was essentially trying to climb Mount Targon to kill the gods anyway.
Mm.
And he succeeded. He killed a god. And so he left his blade in Atreus and left him to die, noting to like collect it later. And what happened was Atreus lost all. I mean, he was just a mortal man at that point. He marched his ass down the fucking mountain with this blade still in him, like on the brink of death, made it all the way back down to the settlement in Mount Targon that he was from, went to Pylus's widow and had her nurse him back to health. And after that, he had come to terms with his mortal existence because he had spent so long watching a god operate in his body that he said, I can beat these people. I don't need to be a god. Gods lose. Gods are no different than us. I will defeat him as the man and the warrior that I am. So he went and he fought Aatrox again. And he fought him this time. Aatrox saw Atreus and was like, I can't believe you're alive, but like, okay, I'll kill you this time. Like, you don't have your little god power to help you. And he underestimated him. So still using Pantheon's armor and weapons, he fought Aatrox again, and he actually severed his arm that was connected to the Darken Blade, which put the constellation of Pantheon back into the sky. So he recreated, by slicing off Aatrox's arm, he actually recreated Pantheon's constellation, bringing Pantheon back to life.
What the freak?
Yes. So even though he is a mortal human, his his sheer determination and his power of will just keeps him at the level of gods. So like, Pantheon is the god, Atreus is the man. Pantheon lost, Atreus won. Yeah. It's dope as fuck. And I literally didn't even have to think about this. This is one of my favorite quotes in all of League of Legends. But Pantheon has a quote that says, "How much further we could march if we were not forced to carry our fears on our back." And I love that quote. He is actually, all of his quotes are incredible. I am in love with him. He's my husband.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. But that wraps up the lore of the aspects. So there's nobody else that we know of as of yet who has been gifted power. I will say Morgana and Kael's mom was given power from the aspect of justice, which they now share because it's just the blade. It's not like their mom is the aspect of justice now. And she sent her blade in 2 parts down to Morgana and Kael. So both of them have some of the power, but it's not the same.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's about all that I got. I think Shurima was my favorite.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Shroom was my favorite too.
Yeah.
I just feel like I had so much fun with it. Like I had so much fun learning about it and how interlinked it all is. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty. I did like it as well, but I also
Completely
really liked the little bit of Freljord too, like the ice kind
yeah,
of flying in of
having
the
it like
eternal ice and stuff.
and like having the kind of like formation of what we know of the Freljord, like the land was made by Ornn and the snow was made by Anivia, and then the the features of the land were carved out by Volibear's claws. Like, that's really cool. I do like hearing about stuff like that. Too. Yeah. But I think that Shurima's lore is so like cohesive and well put together. It just takes number 1 for me.
Okay. You know what? I agree.
We're
is cool.
Shawarma fans.
Shurima is cool.
Yeah.
We're Shawarma fans.
We're diehard Shawarma fans.
Although I've never played a Shuriman champion. I think that they're cool. Like I remember I think like I did the lore for Shurima like back months and months ago or whatever. I think I covered that lore. And that's kind of when I learned about them, and I was like, wait, they're sick. And then I also learned about Ixtal, which I also thought was really cool. So those kind of like, yeah, it would definitely.
You play an
Ixtal
champ sometimes, don't you play Nico sometimes?
No, but I did an ARAM the other.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm thinking of. Which is by the way, that's what we're about to go do. We're about to go play ARAM.
Yes. It's ARAM time.
So I think that's gonna be it for us today. I know you guys probably miss your trusty captain, so don't worry. She will be back next week. And I don't think I'm gonna give you guys a teaser. I think we're gonna let it be a new month, a fresh start, and we'll be back to our regularly scheduled Veda and Cap podcast. An occasional Choccy.
Happy Pride.
Yeah, have a happy Pride. Take care, and remember, Cubbies, keep it real, but keep it curious.
Keep it curious.
Bye-bye.
Bye.